All right, Jeff.
All right, so this one I think is pretty quick, although I could be wrong about that. And it's actually a question that I came up with. Um, I was taking advantage of our wonderfully cloud-covered skies for the last 2 months to create a whole new dark library, and including some very long darks to go with some show filters that I recently bought. And I want to show you one of those filters, one of those dark frames. Can you see that? That is a 1200 second, 20-minute dark with the 183 mm. And I looked at it and, man, this streak goes 90% of the way across the frame, and it's very bright over here. Is this going to make a difference? I mean, it calibrates out just fine. Although I haven't used the 1200s. I haven't gone quite that long yet. So here's the way I'm thinking about it, and I'd love anybody out there with more knowledge than me to tell me if I'm thinking about this right. So this is an unstretched frame that just has the automatic screen transfer function on. When I set my cursor at 1 pixel and run it over the brightest area here, you notice the K value is maxing out between 0.35 and 0.04. So if I'm interpreting that right, I am using up in this area 3 to 4% of the well depth of the pixels over here. So if there were a very bright star in my field right here that would be otherwise at 98% of the full well, this 3% is going to max it out. Now, then you turn around and you subtract this from the light frame, and I guess that brings it back down to the appropriate level. But it seems that even if it doesn't, even if I'm shortening my well depth here, it doesn't seem to make a big difference. Is that a sensible way to think about it?
I think it is, because I use the same camera, but I'm not using the mono version, I'm using the color version. And all of this calibrates out very well. And I don't think you'd be able to see the 3% light difference. I mean, if you were up at 0.5, okay, or something like that,
Right.
Now you're really taking a hit. But at 3%, you probably can't notice the delta between 3% and 2% or 5%, right?
And I did do some imaging last week at 10 minutes, and it calibrated fine. I took a close look at the right-hand side of the frames, and I couldn't see a thing.
Yeah, and do you remember what your K values were at the lower dark values? Just out of curiosity.
They're lower. They were more like 0.03, high 0.02s.
Because I thought you said this one was 0.03.
This was like 0.030, 35, 31, 35, 36, 31.
Yeah.
But it falls off fairly quickly. I mean, out here, it's already down into the 0.02 somethings. So the max was around 0.025 for 600 seconds.
Okay. I don't think it matters. I think it calibrates out just fine.
I mean, I will acknowledge you do have to set the gain and the offset, right? But if you do that, and don't ask me how I know that, but if you do that, it works fine. Okay, so that was a question I was going to raise. The other one is a more general one. I did solicit questions from a few of the folks in the group who I know are new at this. And the general question came up: what advice do we have about cable management? And in particular, is it really true that a cable rubbing against another cable, or a cable rubbing against touching the mount as the mount tracks along, could really throw off your tracking? And when you bundle cables, does that create interference in the signal, as some folks on cloudy nights assert? And if I'm going to put a mini PC on my rig, where should I put it? So, but don't feel limited by those sub questions.
Well, I'll just tell you that I've seen some pretty interesting cable management in my time. And, one of the more interesting ones I've seen is out at CAC. Occasionally, I'll see people with cables hanging all the way off their telescopes and going to the ground, and, maybe 6 cables hanging off and draping on the ground. And I think that's maybe a little excessive. If you've got reasonable cable management, like up on your OTA or what have you. I don't think cables rubbing on each other is necessarily a problem. But I've never experienced that. But I try and do a reasonably decent job with cable management. But I think if you're not being way excessive and you're not just letting those things hang and the weight of them drag on your OTA, I would think that you're reasonably well okay, right? It's a subtle thing, I don't know where the threshold gets crossed and where tracking gets impacted, but you'd have to show us a picture of your rig, and then we could tell you whether you were really out there or not.
And I did, with the more sophisticated rigs with through the mount cabling, the problem, in my view, just kind of goes away. But when I had an entry level Losmandy mount at the beginning with no cable management and all sorts of big obstructions sticking out of the mount every which way, the best solution I found was to have everything go back to a loom that went off the back of the telescope. That way nothing was dragging against the mount. Others?
Well, I know that when I set up my camera in the back of my C8, I actually went to Amazon and bought some cables specifically that would be the proper length. So that was probably the best managed cable system I've had. Now with the HyperStar, it's a little different. I have my video for my camera and my power for my camera. Those get looped through a little cable management guide to prevent the stars from getting really crazy with star spikes. And that's something that Starizona prints and makes and sells for that particular rig. You just clip it on and you're all set. Now for the other cables, I'm just trying to find the proper length, but I did have a situation once when I couldn't do a flip because the cable got snagged. And from that point on, I was very cognizant of taking care of the cables. But I think my next step for this nebula season is going to be getting cables of the proper length, but not too short, because I don't want them to pull out of the ASIA or whatever, but just trying to manage the cable length. I remember when I first was looking, and I didn't even buy my scope yet, there was somebody at one of the Pima County things that was actually operating a red cat with an ASIR and showing it during one of the stargazing events. And he was mentioning to me about a place where you can get cables made specifically for the length that you need, like custom made cables. And I'm not sure who that was.
I think we talked about the custom made cables in some meeting in the last year or two. That rings a bell, Dave. And I spend tons of time. I +1 to your point about cables of the proper length with just some slack so the focusers can move in and out and stuff like that. But otherwise, I try to have no slop. But I just spend what feels like hours on Amazon looking for something. Hey, I really need like 0.4 meters. Okay, what would they?
I know with the new AM5N that's out, which is the next mount that I will get in the future. And those AM5s were not even available when I started. Like they were just being released from people that had orders out months in advance. But the new AM5 has a special area where you can feed your cables through specifically through that.
Where, for those who use some sort of Air or mini PC, where does it sit?
I have mine on top of the telescope. Just it's so light, I don't think it makes much difference. At least that's been my experience. The air,
Yeah,
it's
mine's on
ex-
top of the OTA as well.
Yeah. and
I
it's
think
just
it-
it's on there with Velcro. It's not a big deal.
I think if you know, in your case, Jeff, you've got through the mount cabling. And so there's no reason to put it up on the OTA with my old
Yeah,
mount.
I don't.
I put it up on the OTA with the old mount only because I didn't have through the mount cabling. But if you've got through the mount cabling, there's no reason to put it up on the OTA. Just put it down lower.
Now, unless I'm going to use the Wi-Fi connection, which is generally not recommended, I've got to connect the OTA to the mount control box, which sits still, at the south end of the mount. So I figure better to have the computer not moving and the control box not moving, one wire to the through the mount cable, one USB to the through the mount cable. I do have a Pegasus power box up on the top, so that gives me power and communications distribution to 2 cameras, filter wheel, autofocus.
Right, but for you, so you've got 12 volts going into the through the mount cabling, and you've got a USB going up there as well.
Exactly.
I've got a hub and the Pegasus power box up there as well, but you don't need to put the computer up there. You can just leave the computer down lower. Now, if you didn't have that in the case when I had the Pi and I was using the CGXL, I had to put everything up on top, right? Because I didn't want to have that stuff swiveling. And so then I paid the price of running one power cable up there. And trying not to dangle that thing too hard, right? But yeah, I would say keep the PC down low where it's not moving. If there's not a reason to put it up there, I wouldn't put it up there.
Other thoughts? Anybody dealing with this issue at the moment or have recently dealt with it? Who's newer to the game?
All I know is for the cabling, when I've tried to make everything neat and tidy, I've had a lot more trouble than when I let things kind of drape, not dragging the ground, but I've had a lot less problem with catching anything if there's enough, so it can fully go through any configuration and still not grab anything that happens to stick out. So that's my experience.
Mine has been about the same.
Yeah, Velcro is your friend.
Yeah. All my cables are pre-snug with the Velcro. I've never had any issues. And one other thing I found out that was really, it seems like it was a real simple thing, but I found out the reasonings why the counterweights had a flat side to them. That's because that's supposed to be facing where the screw is, I guess, that you use to loosen the little thing on the back to raise and lower your altitude. So one night it actually got caught when it was trying to slew, and actually I caught it when it happened, and took care of the issue. But I felt really dumb because, oh man, I should have known that. But that's one of the, oh, by the way, things they don't tell you when you buy all the equipment at Starizona.
No, say that again. I'm not
Okay, so the
understanding you.
counterweights with the AVX mount, specific to the AVX mount, they're like 11-pound weights, and they have a flat edge to the one side of the mount, and that's designed specifically so that the knob that loosens or tightens the altitude knob that you use when you're doing your polar alignment and so forth and getting it set up initially for the right altitude. So the little knob that's in the front does not hit the weight. It has clearance. And I discovered that the hard way, but.
Every one of us has been there one way or another, right?
Yeah, one of those little, oh, by the way things.
All right, any other beginner type questions that someone wants to bring up?
I get a question. I've always assumed that if you're going to be using drizzle, you have to have taken your images with dithering. I'm seeing some people online who are saying that that's not true. How would you use drizzle?
You mean dithering?
Have it dithered?
Yeah.
No, you definitely need a dither.
Yeah,
And there's a reason for that.
That's
We're,
what I've always believed. Yeah.
yeah, so actually that will be a little bit of the topic for next month. Stay tuned. But you definitely need to dither when you drizzle.
yeah. I didn't realize also you have to have a minimum of 15 subs to do it, from what I understood or heard. When you do
Yeah,
drizzling.
that makes sense as well, because if you think about what you're doing when you dither and when you're drizzling, you need enough samples to make that resolution come out right. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're not doing interpolation anymore. You're doing sub pixel sampling basically, and if you don't have enough samples, then it doesn't work out right. So you definitely need more than, I'd say, 50 is probably on the order of what you need, and more is better.
So I have a question related to using the Hyperstar for imaging with all the light that I'm bringing in compared to what I was doing at F7 for Galaxy season. I'm thinking of changing my approach in terms of the exposure times for my images. And even though I have guiding set up with a guide scope, I'm thinking of maybe going like maybe 60 to 90 seconds as opposed to 2 minutes or 3 minutes on an exposure, and just collecting more subs with shorter exposures and stacking those to keep my stars sharp, but also increase my SNR as well. So I was wondering whether anybody thought about that approach with the Hyperstar. I know that what's her name? I forgot her name. She works at Starzona. She takes fantastic images, and I was told she doesn't go usually beyond 60 seconds and just stacks them.
It's a good strategy. I mean, that's what I do. I use 45-second subs on the Raza, which is essentially a Hyperstar.
Right.
But you can definitely look at your exposures and see what the limit is. Are you saturating at all?
I don't know. What do you mean by
You can push it
saturating?
up to the limit of where you start to saturate and maybe just slightly beyond. But I think you'll find that with a Hyperstar, you're going to saturate most cameras, if they're 16-bit cameras, probably around a minute, right? That's probably
Yeah. When I first started out, I didn't have a guide scope or a guide cam by design. I wanted to learn how to use it without it first. So I was doing 30-second exposures and maybe shooting 400 subs before I started guiding.
Right.
Okay.
After Doug's terrific talk last month, I think it was, on cameras and subframe exposure times, I went back and watched Robin Glover's longer talk, which was also outstanding. I can't remember the last time I sat through an hour-long YouTube presentation, but I really recommend that. You can take a very quantitative approach to how long your subs should be. And Doug, built on Glover's work, and both that video and Glover's are terrific. And the math is not terribly difficult.
No, it's not. It's not hard at all.
All right, our main presentation for this evening is Alan going to tell us about his experience with the SeeStar. So if you're ready, Alan, you can take it away.
I'm going to try and go to share screen right now. There we go. And yep, the wrong slide. There we go. Yeah, this is about the SeeStar S50, and it's been getting a lot of buzz lately. And the buzz got me about 8 months ago, 7 months ago, and I got one. So what is it? Well, first off, telescope. It's a 50mm triplet APO, focal length of 250 and f5. And if you think about it, that's actually a pretty good little scope. Essentially, it uses an ASI 462 MC camera. It doesn't, not really the camera, but it might as well be. It uses the same sensor and a lot of the same, supporting circuitry. It is uncooled, but the read noise is pretty low. And noise has not been a terrific problem for me in using that particular scope. It's also an alt-az mount, which is one of the drawbacks to it, of course. But it does have go-to, it has tracking, but it does not have guiding. It really doesn't need to for the short times that you're taking a particular image. It can plate solve and it can center. It's got 3 internal filters, a dark filter. You don't control that, the unit does. If you're, they use a different terminology, ZWO does. Calibrating and stacking, they call that enhancing. And if you are imaging deep sky objects or whatever, it's going to automatically take some darks when you first start imaging and use those in the live stack process. It's also got a UV IR filter, which if you aren't using anything else, the UV IR filter is there, and you can't turn that off. It's pretty much always going to be there. It does have a dual band LP filter, which it will select automatically depending upon what you're looking at, but you do have control of that. You can turn it on and off. Also has an external solar filter that you can pop in on the front. That's a pretty nifty little filter. Well, that was one of the reasons why I got the unit, was for the solar capacity it has. It has a built-in dew heater, which is not too much of a big deal for us here in Florida. I mean, here in Arizona. It's got a sky atlas with several catalogs. Don't ask me which ones. There was a while back, weeks ago, when you could, when you're looking for an object, it will tell you what catalogs it had. And there were about 5 or 6 of them. That's gone away. You can't find those anymore. They're making continuous changes in this application and all this in response to user desires and requests. It has built-in autofocus, and that built-in autofocus is pretty good. It has optimized routines. They call them modes for solar, for lunar, for, they call it stargazing. I call it DSOs. And recently they have added comets, and they also have one for regular scenery that you could use during daylight. It has a very nice, albeit short, tripod that comes with it, and it's very well made. It's got built-in Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. There's a free app that controls everything you do from your smartphone or pad, and it works with ISO and Android. I've only used it with ISO. I'm an Apple guy. It has a very nice case. I can hold one up to there. That's it. Everything that you need for basic astrophotography will fit in that case. And the whole thing sells, retail for $499. I should call it $500. Now, Greg asked me, he said, be sure and tell him why I got it. The reason I got it, which was back in February, was I was preparing for the eclipse. And I got, I already had my reservation. I was going for Texas, going to be right on the center line and all that. And I thought this would make a good backup. I can just set it going in the background on its own tripod, have my other gear there. And if something goes wrong or whatever, I just let it run by itself. And I also looked at it as possible ultra portable rig to view the southern sky with, because I'd like to make a trip to Costa Rica one of these days. And this would be very easy to just carry with you on the airplane, so you could see some of the southern skies. Yeah, I thought it would be great for quick and dirty solar and lunar imaging. Conditions aren't great. For some reason, maybe it's too much moon out, clouds or whatever. This thing, you just pop out there and at least do something. And last but not least, I figured if it didn't pan out or I got tired of it, I could gift this to my granddaughter and her family. She's got 4 girls that love astronomy. So that's why I got it. Caveats here. I am by no means an expert on the SeeStar. About the time of our last meeting, I had just posted some photos that were actually, not bad. And that, I guess Greg saw that and thought, hey, I must be an expert. So will you do a presentation? And I thought, yeah, I could do that because I'd be able to dig in, refresh my limited skills and everything for, I'd have a month to prepare for it. Well, we all know what that's been like for the last month. So the other caveat, and the big one, is that the capabilities and operation of this thing are really a moving target. There have been so many changes and they're happening so rapidly. I mean, this thing has really taken off. It has been extremely popular. There's all sorts of Facebook pages for it and web. You'll see if you go to YouTube and enter SeeStar, you're going to be overwhelmed by what's out there. There have been some things that people haven't liked, and they've let the CWO know, and they have been making changes as we go along here. What it means to a user is, if you're trying to figure out how to use this thing, what it does and all that, you go out there for YouTube videos. Most of it is out of date already. Anything that is more than 6 months old on YouTube, they're going to show you, okay, click this button here to do this, and you're going to look at the screen and it just isn't there. Some of these changes have occurred while I've been preparing for this. So this is not going to be a how-to presentation. And I say about a little bit of how it works and what it is and some of the things that I've found out about it. But I really need to get back onto it again myself because so much has changed. Even the app is different on the between the phone and the pad, and I'm sure it is between iOS and Android. The ZWO user manual, you go ahead and print it out nice. I put it into a little folder and all that. Might as well throw it over your shoulder. It'll help you a little bit for how to connect to it. After that, it's just about useless. There's a ton of information online, but it's often contradictory and misleading, and some of it is just plain flat wrong. I'll do my best here. I don't want to, I'm hesitant to tell you anything that may turn out wrong. Also, there are a number of other smart scopes out there on the market, EvoScope and Dwarf and things like this. I've never used one or anything, so I can't compare them. But good. Once you've gotten past all that negative stuff I was telling you about what's online and gotten it figured out, which isn't too terribly difficult, I managed. It is really simple and easy to use. Very simple and easy. You can take this out in your backyard, be up and imaging 30 minutes tops. 15 minutes is not unreasonable. You get used to it and it goes quick. You pop this thing down and you go through the routines to set it up and get it aligned. And it gives you instructions while you're doing it. That'll, say you want to, you go to the page, you got to calibrate the compass so it knows which way it's pointing. You click calibrate. It pops up a little video there. It tells you do this. Shows a guy standing there holding the rig, turning in circles. That's how you calibrate it. And it'll give you a visual and verbal cue that, okay, it's done. So it really walks you through this stuff every time you use it. It's got 4 modes. Stargazing mode is what they call it, to do DSOs and stars. It's got solar, lunar, comets, which is new. They didn't have that when I started this. That was in the last week. I discovered that during another update. Solar and lunar and planetary, that's all combined now. That also was something they did just last week. And so you click on that and drill down. Has a scenery mode for anything not astro. And a little bit more about that later, but it's actually kind of cool. The optics on the scope are really quite good. You can take some really good pictures with it if you do it the way they tell you. And basically, the quick and dirty on that is you use 10-second integrations and shoot a whole bunch of them. And for most of what you're going to do, as far as, like bright nebula, most galaxies, things that aren't too faint, that works out really, really well. You're going to get what you need in time before field rotation becomes a problem. And you can take out your raw images. You can do your live stacking is normal. That's how you're doing it. You don't have to turn it on. As soon as you click take a picture, it starts live stacking. In the stargazing mode. You can save those as raw. You can download them and put them in your processing thing of choice. I do it in PixInsight. Goes in there. All those tools are available to you, and you can turn things out pretty good. The LP filter seems to be similar to the Enhance, the L Enhance, which is a reasonably decent filter. If you're not happy with that, you can also, it's not ZWO, but there are aftermarket accessories you can get that will enable you to use any 2-inch filter. The scenery mode is actually pretty cool. It's got a minimum focus that's a whopping 63 feet. So you're not gonna, take pictures of your kids' graduation and stuff like that with this thing. Also, it's a little clumsy to use as compared to like a point and shoot camera. But you get really sharp images at a pretty high magnification. I mean, I'm talking over 1,000 millimeters in comparison to a telephoto lens. And this is something I did on the first day that I had set this up. And this is a treetop, probably about a quarter of a mile away or something like this from the house. I was trying to see how the focus might be. And I haven't done it yet, but I plan on taking this out and doing a little bit of scenery photography and maybe some wildlife photography, because it gives me a level of magnification that I can't get with my regular equipment. Now, let's see if I can get rid of this thing. That didn't work out the way. When I tried this before, it was in a green box and I was able to, okay, maybe let me try just double clicking it again, see if I can get rid of it. No.
There's an X at the very top right you might want to select.
Yeah, I'm afraid that might close my Zoom, but I'll give it a try.
So,
Yeah, it did
there
it.
you
No.
go. And we're still looking at the picture.
Well, there's an X here. This will do it. Okay,
And the other X.
so much for that. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, get rid of it that way. Okay, there we go. Can you see my screen?
No.
Yeah, you need to share again.
Okay. screen. Ah. The trouble is now is that I am not seeing. Am I still connected? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, I don't see, she's show slide panel. Nope. I don't have the buttons on the bottom right now. And I don't see,
You move your mouse, they might pop up on the bottom of the screen.
do what?
Move your mouse and
I
you
am.
might see the bottom line, ribbon line for all the
I
buttons.
have already done that. It's not,
Huh.
it's not coming. Let me try minimizing this.
You don't see a share thing on the bottom?
No.
Hmm.
I did that. Wait a second. Sign in Zoom. No,
You don't need to sign in, you're on the call.
I know that. I'm not exactly sure. I did this before as a practice before we started, and it worked fine then. Now I've got a slideshow. I'm at full screen, and I don't have it there either. Trouble is, yeah, I don't see my Zoom. I can't see that.
You might be in the wrong screen if you don't see Zoom at all. All you see is where it says join back to meeting, stuff like that. Then you have to look for the window where the meeting's actually taking place.
I don't see where the Windows meeting is taking place. That's what I'm trying to say.
On the very bottom of your screen,
There
where
is
all your, where
nothing
all your
down
little
there.
ribbons are, there should be
None
a
of those
ZM,
icons
a
are
blue ZM circle. You don't see that?
there. No. No, I don't see anything from Zoom.
If you're using a
Ah.
PC, try doing Alt Tab and scroll through the open windows.
That's a thought. Yeah, let me see there. No. Here's the thing for Zoom, but this is return to meeting. Okay, there we go. And I can do a share screen. Here we go. And let me get rid of this.
Back.
Okay. All right. The bad, as mentioned before, documentation is abysmal. It's very lightweight, which is nice at times, but it's not so hot in the wind. To me, the camera is the weakest point. You are getting a 2.1 meg at 1936 by 1096, and it has a vertical orientation, and that makes for a tall, skinny image, and it cannot be rotated. So if you look at it and say, hey, yeah, I got my image in there, but yeah, the composition is terrible. I need to rotate my camera to fit it, but you can't do that. The pixel size is 2.9, which is basically, it's like the ASI 183. So even at 250 millimeters, you don't get much focal field of view. All in all, I think they could have made a better choice. The sensor, to me, is just too dang small. The orientation of it is not really favorable, and I kind of would have liked to have the pixel size a little bit bigger too, but there's no way to retro any of that. It is an Alt-as mount. Any exposure longer than 10 seconds, and trust me, I have tested that, we will start to see field rotation. It's not really a big problem if you do it the way ZWO recommends. Shoot 10 seconds, but just shoot a whole ton of them. The first images are going to look, gee, if I really got anything there, it's going to look terrible. But after about around 18 to 20, which does not take too terribly long unless you've got other people over your shoulder saying, hey, where's the picture? And it starts to look a heck of a lot better. When I say lots of pictures, I'm talking orders of hundreds. I would shoot generally 150, something like that, or more. Doesn't take that long before you get it. And you save those as raw while you're doing your stack. Your stack will look okay on the small screen that you've got there. It's fine, but it won't look really great. But you can, again, take those raw images and you can do a heck of a lot with them. There are people who are using wedges out there. It's a little more complicated than just putting it on a wedge. You can actually put it on a regular photographic camera mount on a tripod and crank that up to match with your altitude. But there's some other things that have to be done as well. It gets a little bit complicated. I haven't tried it myself. Don't know if I will. Forget planets. Even Jupiter is way too small. You can't, I vaguely on this little tiny thing, maybe make out a band, but probably not. You can tell that Saturn has got sort of rings because they're like little bumps on the side. That's about it. The file sizes are small. If you just shoot without selecting RAW or anything, your JPEGs are going to be between 2 and 800 kilobytes. And that's it. If you choose to save RAW, you will get a fit in the stargazing mode. Or if you shoot video in solar and lunar, in which case you'll get an MP4, unless you choose RAW, and then you can get an AVI. Now the fit is going to be an ASI fit. It means it's not going to open natively in Adobe products. You can do it in Photoshop if you use Fits Liberator or something like that. But there are other things that, like Earthenware, won't show up in there. It works fine in PixInsight. So for me, it's great. A very popular choice out there is a program called Sibyl, S-I-B-I-L. I don't use it, never have, but it's free. And a lot of people use that and they've had very good results with it. The magnification is fixed and can't be changed. And that is really annoying because to me, it's just a little too tight. Of course, I'm a wide field guy. I like to shoot a lot of wide field. It's just a little bit higher than I would want. It'd probably be great during galaxy season again, but you can't change it. You can't slap a Barlow on there. People have tried to retro some reducers on it, and they have, but nobody so far has been successful. I should mention computers. Nobody has been able to get this to run, even the developers out there, on a PC on Microsoft. I have heard that if you're a Mac user and has something called the M chip, that they've been able to get that to work there, but I can't confirm that. Okay, the ugly. The only thing ugly to me are the people who are always complaining about the SeeStar as being just a toy and no true astronomers would use one. I remember back when I started astronomy, how thrilled I was to get my first equatorial mount, which I had to twiddle knobs on and everything. But then when the first go-to mounts were coming out, there were a lot of people that just said, you weren't a real astronomer unless you could star hop to your target. And then you weren't a real astronomer if you didn't use just an eyepiece. And for those of us who remember those days, It was just one faint fuzzy after another. By the time you finally found it, you wouldn't want to go back to those. The SeeStar will let you create, will that let you create images as good as I do with my C11, my CQ350 mount, my ASI 294 MC Pro? Oh, of course not. Not any, no way. And it's never going to. The smart scopes at some point may get to that. It may, if you look at how rapidly they're progressing, that is probably, it may happen someday, but not right now. But they're only $500. And I'm glad to see that they're out there, because there's a whole lot of new astronomers, a lot of not so new, that are in our club, for instance. They'd like to get into astrophotography, but they're on the fence about it because it's really expensive. And for some people, it's just too expensive, and there's a really steep learning curve to it. This will allow them to make the jump and get started. I quit astrophotography. I started off with film and quit years ago because it was just too much of a pain in the butt. You shoot all night, you take your film into Walmart the next morning, you get it processed, oh crap, I did something wrong. You go back and you do that over and over again. I gave it up. What got me back into it was the Malancam. It was a start party. Somebody said, hey, you got to come take a look at the Malancam. And I looked at the screen, and there was the Eagle Nebula in color. And it looked like the magazines. I fell in love with them. Bought up my Malancam, and that you could save your images as well. They weren't great as photographic images, but I learned how to stack. I learned how to calibrate and process, moved up to a DSLR, and now I've gone all the way to just fully automatic. But it's a long trip, and I think this will be very good for our hobby. I've been accused of being ugly myself, but I do have the advantage here that I've got a really good-looking dog. I couldn't resist this. That was my bearded colleague there, and hopefully, let me see if I can get rid of this without having to quit. Okay, that'll do it. It's in the background. And it's, I really think there's a future for this. Whether I'm going to keep it or give it to the grandchildren or yet not is still to be reserved, but I think there is a place for it. Got some miscellaneous stuff for you here. The Bayer matrix is GRBG, and I ran into that, and I had such a hard time trying to track down what the matrix was. I did eventually find it somewhere, but I just tried everything until I got the right one. Live stacking, it creates darks. I mentioned that before, but it does it automatically. If you go into your stargazing mode, you start imaging, it'll say, okay, you're enhancing, we're going to calibrate. And what they mean is they're going to take darks. It doesn't save them. I haven't found any way to do that. I've been told by some people that you can take your own dark using, by capping it using the scenery mode. Whether that would work in WBPP, if all the components are there or not, I have no idea, but I haven't needed them. I stacked, recently 187 10-second images. I'll be able to show it to you shortly. It's on the Eagle Nebula in WBPP. No calibration files, no darks, no flats, no bias images, and certainly no dark flats. Didn't seem to matter. It's a low noise camera to begin with, and you shot so many frames that it seems to take what there is out of the image. And of course, you've got it in PixInsight, so you've got noise exterminator, blur exterminator, all those things to play with. You'll be able to see that image shortly. If you want good images, shoot 10 seconds by the hundreds and process them and pixel sight and something else. I've heard that lunar and solar are 8-bit, but I haven't been able to confirm that. It's not in the headers anywhere, and it does not say on GWO's website. DSO raw is 12-bit. There are some ambitious users out there that have managed to use this in some unconventional ways. They've done photometry with it. They've actually done spectroscopy with it. They have equatorial mounting working and have taken images up to 9 minutes long with this thing. Why, I don't know, but they're able to. You guys know our community as we do. There are some people that are real techno guys, and if you tell them there's a limitation, they regard it as a challenge. They use enhancing as a term to cover calibration and integration or stacking. Stacking uses the first frame as a reference frame. They have their own procedures for stacking within the SeeStar itself. It produces a reasonable result, but it's nothing close to what you can do if you take raw files out and process them on your own computer. There is a cottage imaging industry providing 3D printed accessories of varying quality. And I'll stop the share here for just a minute so I can show that to you. You can get a batten off mask that you can pop in there. I got one of these, have not, since I got it, I haven't really felt the need to use it. There you can, this is something you can put a filter in, a 2-inch filter, and put that in. And this is terrible. For one thing, the only way you can put it in is backwards. And there are some filters that it matters which way the direction of the light is. I got another one. This is from AISIG. It snaps in on this, and this one does the job quite well. There's no cap that comes with it. If you don't want dust getting in your SeeStar when you put it away, a lot of people leave the filter on. And then you can get dust on your filter. This is one of the ones also that's not that great. It's a cap. It works. That blue stuff that you see there, that's masking tape, because after using it about half a dozen times, then it started to get slippery and slip out. And while I've got it, this is the filter, solar filter that goes there. Somebody did a whole tutorial on how to use the space between the sections of the SeeStar. Got one here, you can see it's like, this is the main body, this is the part that rotates. Light can shine through that. And so, okay, if you use your shirt or hold your hand, you can see that light, and that'll help you to line up. And this little hole up there on the top of the handle does that job just fine. You just put that in so it's pointed towards the top, and it'll shine on the SeeStar. And if you have any trouble getting the sun centered, that'll do the job for you. We'll go back to share screen now. Okay, that's pretty much it for my for this slideshow presentation, but I can show you some stuff here. This is a solar image, one of the first ones that I did, and that's because it's what I got it for. And as you see, it's not bad. It's not real great. The image that you take, just, okay, pop it in there, take an image, and you get a shot, is pretty much like this. In order to really get things to the very best, what you do is shoot video with AVI. Like this particular one, I shot about 3,000 images or frames of AVI, ran it through PIP, and told it, okay, select the 50%, best 50%, ran it through auto stock, or select the best 25, stacked everything together into a TIFF, put it in Lightroom, tweaked the clarity a little bit and the texture, and it definitely improved it. It looks better. Not amazingly better than what you get if you just take the simple shot there, and I had a lot of work to do that. Now, on the other hand, this is a lunar shot, and this is straight out of the box. Bring that in. No processing, no nothing. This is just a lunar shot. And it's really not bad. It's not terrific. There is a tendency with this to get a little blowout along the rim. And this holds up fairly well. The shot is great. Show the kids or the family, real quickly. They want to look through your telescope. This one I spent more time on, and I will say lunar shots, shooting a lot, shooting the video, breaking it down, it does improve it significantly. If you look closely here, you'll see that I'm starting to get color. And that was why I did all that, to see if I could get color. I didn't take it as far as I would have liked to have, because I'm starting to get these artifacts over here. I was unable to do anything about the blowout that's out here. One of the problems with not being able to change the exposures, you have three choices, 10, 20, and 30, is you can't do it any slower. I would have liked to have lowered my exposure time on all of this. So what I'm going to do, I haven't done it yet, if I shoot something like this again, is I'm just going to put a neutral density filter up on the front to try and tone that down a little bit. Now, this is, I mentioned one that I did 187 images on. This is it. Now this is cropped, really cropped, because it was right smack in the middle. Remember I told you it's a long, thin, and so everything above and below this is pretty much wasted. And I wanted to bring it in. I got another version of the same thing, but it's really not, it's a great image. I certainly do much better with my other one, like my C11 or my RASA 8. But it's a decent image, and it's give you an idea of what you can do if you get it into a good program and you shot raw. Now, this is from those same images that I stacked. This one I didn't zoom in quite as far on, but it still is still cropped considerably. And I did narrow band normalization on this. So all the tools that you have in PixelSight can be used on these images. And the more that you shoot, the better it's going to be. And this zooms in fairly well. Notice some images, some targets are better than others. This is M4. And I'm going to zoom in here. And you can see you can really get in tight on this. And it's still, I think this is looking pretty decent. Now, on this one, it looked pretty decent to begin with, but I used a trial copy of Topaz AI. They call it Topaz Photo AI. And what that does is it lets you resize your image. Now, if you zoom in on the first image, eventually it'll start to pixelate because it's a small image. You can double the size of this. This thing is this is, I think, about 3.5 times the size of my original image in there. So you get a definite improvement on your resolution by doing that. One thing I haven't done yet is to do that size before I start the other processing. And I think that might make an even greater difference. That's a pretty nifty program. It's also a pretty expensive one. But if you think, if I'm going to continue doing serious, if you want to stay serious about doing deep sky astrophotography, I think that's going to be a tool that you really need because it helps to combat the size problems you have with your images. This is the opening page. I'll make this a little bigger too. Of the app. And the first time I saw this was, see, this is Monday, was Friday, because they updated it then. The first time I used this thing, the only way that you could do solar was to go to scenery first, and in scenery, cause this arm to go up. Then you could put the filter in, because you have filter in to go solar. Then obviously that was the problem. It was inconvenient and an easy fix. They put 2 arrows on this thing. So you click those arrows and you can make this arm go up and down. Well, now what they did away with the arrows, they just have this thing open arm. You click on this, the arm comes up and you can put your solar filter in. They also took lunar and solar and planetary and put it under a single icon, and now you drill down. There's scenery, there's a cometary mode too, which I think is over here. Well, that may be in the solar system. Yeah, it is. Album, you click on that in order to get to where your stuff is. Deep sky stack, I've never used. That's just if you've already shot a bunch of individual images and you want to stack them. Why you would do that, I'm not sure, considering you've got a live stack mode. I expect this to disappear. If you click on tutorials, you get a number of, probably about a dozen tutorials that tell you about the system and how to use it. Unless they've updated it, because I haven't clicked on this to go look at that yet. They were out of date, just like the stuff on the internet. The stuff here, visibility, give us moon. They know where you are when you get to here, and they know what time it is. And this is fairly accurate. It'll give you a reasonable idea of your weather situation and your lunar. I like it because I keep a log and I don't have to go online or anything in order to find out what the percentage is. And then there'll be recommended stuff, and you can scroll down on this, there's more. The bottom bar, the SeeStar's homepage. This takes you to the Sky Atlas. And these other 3, this one's for the community. It's like a Facebook for SeeStar users. This one will tell you if other SeeStar users are in the area. This one's to set up a profile for this. I don't do any of that. I just use it to take images. Okay. Okay, this is what I should have mentioned it, that this image picture of the SeeStar that was on the homepage. In order to get to your settings page, you just click on that and it opens a setting page. Gives you Wi-Fi information here. There is, just like there is in AISIG, this whole thing is kind of a dumbed down version of AISIG. Yeah, there's a station mode, so you can connect to your local Wi-Fi if you want, and you would still be controlling it with your iPad or your iPhone, but you can do that. Gives you greater range. You'll go inside if you want. Firmware. If you come in, if you have a number here, it's up to date. If it's not up to date, there'll be, and there's 2 ways here. There may be a thing here saying you're not up to date, update now. But I know for a fact that it has updated because it's happened recently to me. They just did it. You adjust sound here, you can affect your focusing program here, watermark. If you were to scroll down on this, there would be a button that says Advanced Settings. We'll look at that in a minute because it's important. And below the Advanced Settings, there's a little button basically that you slide to the right. That's how you shut down. It talks to you. It'll say, okay, shutting down, and it'll go to home and it'll shut itself down and log you out of the app will still be open. This is the objects page. You can get to this from the Sky Atlas. You get to the Sky Atlas from the home page, and you can get to objects from here. It'll give you tonight's best, and that's reasonably accurate. You can pick something there, just pick on it, and you'll go there. Deep sky, you can say galaxy, nebula, cluster, moon, sun, planet, forget planet. If you can swipe this off to the side, and there'll be a thing for comet. That's brand new, and I haven't used it yet. The other thing that is pretty important here is this is when you go to take a picture, you know, you've clicked on stargazing or clicked on something there. This is going to be the opening page for that. And just like your phone, you click on this red thing here to start taking. If you're at 10-second images, it starts taking 10-second images one right after the other. This little thing here that says filter, if it's white, that means that the LP filter is not there. SeeStar will select a filter for you or non-select a filter, depending on what you're looking at. It's not going to put a filter out here if you're using solar. If you selected a galaxy, this is probably going to be white. Nebula is probably going to be green. You can choose this. You can turn it off, turn it on. It's either white or green. If it's green, you've got the LP filter. If it's white, you've got the UV IR filter, but you can put something on with the accessory. This down here, autofocus, that autofocus is pretty good. You just click autofocus and it'll autofocus. If you want to be picky, like when I do the sun, I'll click on sunspots and I'll do the autofocus and you'll see it go out of focus one way, out of focus the other, and it's pretty darn good. It gets right to it. These are just like for ASI Air. You can fine tune this if you want. I have not felt the need to do it, just like I haven't felt the need to use the button-off mask. It's always kind of been right on. This is what you can adjust with. You've got an image in there. You've stopped it. You're looking at that image, and you want to. It's got the usual that you would probably have on your smartphone. You can adjust the brightness, the exposure, contrast, gamma, that sort of stuff. And it does a reasonably decent job, but again, not as good as your computer. This is how you get to the Sky Atlas. And I'll show you that in a minute. With this, I've never used that. If you have something in here, if there isn't anything now, you click on that and you could label it or something like that. As I said, I've never used it. And this is the Sky Atlas. You can go top here, you click objects, and it'll take you to where you would select your objects. There is a search mode there. You can enter into the search mode like SH2-161 or something. If you're getting to more obscure catalog information you've got, I don't know if it'll work or not, because I can't tell you that the catalogs are complete. That's something we just have to find out. And I have not been able, I've tried to research that. I haven't been able to find anything out about it. You can set, if you want to do things manually, you can set a compass here, or which direction it's going to point. You can make the grid just come and go with this. This, I think, is to, like with stellarium, you'll show ground features around the horizon. I think some people like that, and so you can do that. I guess it's a good idea. You'll know if you've gone too far. You can click and drag on this. Say I'm right now looking at HD 28313, whatever that is. Say there's something cool up here. You can click and drag so that one of these target is the pink one is going to be over that. And then you just come down here and click go to, and it'll move to it automatically. You can scroll through the entire sky if you want. You can zoom out so you see more of the sky. So this is another way that you can go to an object that you want. I have found no way that you can enter coordinates into this thing. If it isn't there in the catalog, you cannot do that. Maybe the comets are probably, hopefully they keep that up to date. There is a way that you can do it. You can use another program or go online, find out what the RA and the declination are, because it'll tell you down at the bottom here, it'll give you that information. So if you really want to do something like that, you're just going to have to click and drag this thing around until it matches up with those, or until it shows at least enough that you can see it. And this last one here, yeah, this is just to show you, you're going back to this one, how you would, okay, how you can click and drag here just as well. This little white thing, the little ring, it's there. When you click that, you get to this, and that's kind of intuitive. You just click this and drag it this way, that way. You go up, down, side to side. Unfortunately, you can't rotate it. It's slow and fast. Takes a little practice to get used to it, because a little hesitation before it starts to move, and it's easy to overshoot, but it works. And that, near as I can figure it, is it. Does anybody, I mean, I guess ran a little longer than I thought there. I was waiting for somebody to tell me to shut up. Anybody got any questions?
So I just have one question about the solar.
Yeah.
Is there a built-in solar filter in there or not?
No,
So will they let you click on the sun and try and go to the sun without a solar filter?
I don't believe, well, yes, I believe that they will, but they might not.
They
What
give you a
happens
warning.
What happens when you click on it is it pops up a box. And it says, you are trying to go to the sun. Be sure that you have your solar filter on, and it'll show you a little image of somebody putting the solar filter on.
Okay.
Do not look at the sun without it. Now, it's not going to blind you if you do. What it will do, I'll tell you, is this will destroy your sensor.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I wondered. Okay, thanks.
It's going to be a real blind, flashing light that'll probably make you blink a lot for a little bit, but it's not. You're not actually going to see the sun.
There are a couple of questions in the comments, Alan. I'll just read them in the interest of time. How heavy is that case fully loaded?
I think it's about 7 pounds with everything. If that, I mean, I haven't weighed it, and that's just something that kind of comes to my memory. You can find that easy on the website for it, but it's light. It's quite light.
And so when you're doing a long series of exposures, do you do 10-second exposures for 1 or 2 or 5 minutes?
When I do them,
Stack those, or you just do one long run?
the way that I do it is I got my target, I click, I start 10-second runs. 10 seconds. It just shoots continuous 10 seconds. And I wait until I'll let it run quite a while. I won't let it run. Here's your problem. If you let it run long enough, you're still getting field rotation. So the only way, if you, some people have shot like in the thousands here, or yeah, like 800 and something. I got some data from a guy online who had made it available for you to download. He shot 800 and something images. And the way he did it was, okay, he picked out a section of the sky where it was. He shot for like an hour to an hour. That 187 images that I shot was just a little over half an hour. So your field rotation really doesn't affect you much for that. So he would shoot for an hour, next night, shoot for an hour, next night, shoot for an hour. And so he did this and then processed the whole thing. That's about one hell of a computer. Well, I guess I did it with myself, so I guess, and it worked out. But if you were to shoot for like, say, 3 hours, and I've seen images that have done this, what happens is you get a whole bunch of stuff. It'll be in the upper left corner and the lower right corner. It'll still come out straight. You'll still get your images and it'll look good, but you're losing big chunks of your image.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my question.
Yeah.
And so you are not restarting it every 10 seconds. You're letting it run 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, I let it run.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, that's what I've been doing. I let it run 5 or 10 minutes and start again. And then I do use their stacking tool.
Yeah. Now, one thing I neglected to show you here, and I just saw it. There is one other, this is not obviously 3D printed. Most of the people who use SeeStar will tell you that this, or there's another type made by Newar that you turn. This allows you to tweak your leveling because it is kind of a pain. For one thing, you got to get down practically on your hands and knees to do those tripods and adjust the legs and all of this. With this, you get it level pretty good to start, and then you can tweak it by turning these. And it makes it much, much easier to do. It takes a little practice with this as well. But this is regarded as a must-have necessity for most people. You don't have to, but it is. And you can, as I've done here, this is on my photo tripod. You know, a good quality photo tripod. And I can put a weight on it and everything, stabilize it in the wind and all this. The only time I've ever really, other than testing it, when I was trying to use the small tripod, was at the Grand Canyon. And I was doing solar at the visitor center there for people during the day. And I had to carry all this stuff there. And so I set it up that way. People would come by and look, what's that? And I said, I had my iPad on a music stand so they could see the sun. I sat right up to the NASA had a table there. And I was right next to them.
Okay, thank you, Alan. I did have a question. When it tells you to update, you said there's a lot of updates. Is it updating the app on your phone, or is it actually updating something in the device itself?
It's updating the app on the phone.
So there's nothing
There
stored
is.
in the device itself?
Now, there is when you first start, it's going to download, it can do, call it the firmware on the map. So it can do both. The updates, most of what we've been seeing are they are strictly for the app.
Okay.
One of the unfortunate things about smart telescopes in general is that they're really not upgradable, and they're moving so fast. Yeah, 2 or 3 years from now, a couple of years from now, this thing is going to be out of date.
So is this a big app? I mean, it must have quite a bit to it to have all those catalogs as well as being able to plate solve.
I think it's in the telescope and it updates
That's all it is.
firmware.
Oh,
And so I think when it updates firmware, it's doing the telescope.
Yeah. I would venture that that is as well. I don't know
Yeah.
exactly what size the app.
Yeah, it probably has a chip or something that emulates what or similar to the ASI Air.
Yeah. It's, if you're an ASI Air user, a lot of the stuff can be very familiar with it.
Yeah.
But they are really aiming this at the beginner. I mean, as you go through here, if you want to, it's going to pop up a little screen that's going to tell you, okay, this is how you do it.
so you don't have to have internet access in order to use it. Internet access?
You do not have to have internet access to do it. You will need GPS to do it, but you know, that's why, and the GPS, yeah, that's another thing. I meant to put that in the notes and didn't. It does not have a built-in GPS. It uses a GPS on your phone or your pad. If you don't have GPS, for some reason you've disabled that or turned it off, this is not going to work.
Okay.
It uses Bluetooth on your phone.
Sorry, I didn't.
It uses Bluetooth on your phone.
Yes, it uses Bluetooth initially as a part of the setup procedure. And it tells you, okay, have Bluetooth on, and then it connects with Bluetooth, and then you go from Bluetooth to Wi-Fi. And why they do that, I'm not exactly sure, but I guess Bluetooth is more reliable at the short range. And it doesn't generally don't have to worry about interference and things like that.
One last question. Can you have more than one person connected on the network, on its network?
On this network? That's a good question.
With some of the smart
You might.
scopes, you can do that. You can have, everybody has their phone and connects to you.
I don't know the answer to that, but I want to say I don't think you can. But I did, you see, I got tape here. I put the Bayer pattern because I kept forgetting it. And then I have the name of my scope. Because I know the first time with ASI Air and I was down at CAC, and I hadn't changed the password, and neither had one of the other guys who were out there. We were, of course, I was entering commands that were moving his scope, and he was doing the same thing to mine. So we got that sorted out. So
right.
but I don't know the answer.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for doing that, Alan. That was really good. I think you gave us a really in-depth review of the device. I want to remind everybody that we meet on the third Monday of the month, and next month for our September meeting, that'll be September the 16th. If you have images that you'd like to see in the Desert Sky Bulletin, you need to send those to me, or you can just email me and tell me that you can use any of the pictures I post online, and then I can save those pictures for future editions of the bulletin. And I also would like to announce that coming in September, we're going to have an imaging contest, and there'll be more information about that contest available in the next several weeks. So be on the lookout for that. All right, everybody. Thank you for showing up tonight, and hope you learned something. I'll try to have the recording posted sometime tomorrow.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks a lot.